Hello and welcome everyone to the City of North Plains City Council regular session meeting, Monday, October 17th, 2022 at 7:02. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Lori, roll call.
Thank you. Mayor Linehan,
Here.
Councilor Page,
Here.
Councilor Kendall.
Here.
Councilor Picton.
Here.
Councilor Sheldon,
Present.
and Councilors Martinez and Smith are both excused this evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Lori. Before I ask for the consent agenda approval, because we have Rachel Schutz here with us this evening from the Family Justice Center, and I will be reading a proclamation for the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I would suggest that we move that item down to presentation so that she has a few minutes to speak before the proclamation or after, whichever she prefers. So by moving that item, then we would be approving tonight's agenda for October 17th and then moving to approve the October 3rd, 2022 City Council minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes that we need to be aware of? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve with the correction.
I move to approve the minutes with the corrections as stated earlier.
Do I have a second? I'll second. All right, we have a first by Councilor Page, seconded by Councilor Kendall. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. At this time is public comments. It's time to wish anyone on the call or in Jessie Mays wishing to speak on anything not on the agenda. Anyone in the Jessie Mays Hall wishing to speak? Hearing none. Anyone on the call or Lori, have you received anything via email?
Nothing prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. All right. Moving on. All right, 7 AB. I'm going to go with B first, if that's okay with Commissioner Willie.
I don't know A or B, so I'm just here when you call my name, I come.
Roger that, roger that. All right, well, as we know, as I stated earlier, Rachel Schutz, who is the Executive Director for the Family Justice Center, she's here with us this evening. North Plains not only contributes to the center, but we support the center's efforts and everything under that umbrella. This evening, we are being graced with her lovely presence. And before I read the proclamation, I would love it if you'd like to come up to the podium and just share with us maybe a brief update.
Well, thank you all for having me tonight. I appreciate it. As Mayor said, I am Rachel Schutz, the Executive Director of the Family Justice Center of Washington County. This year, unfortunately, has been a busy one of the busiest and perhaps the busiest we've had since we've opened. The pandemic saw a dip in our numbers, though we know across the country there was a rise in domestic violence and partner violence of all kinds, including child abuse. So I think now we are seeing the impacts of that. A lot of people thought that our numbers would go down after the pandemic ended, even across the country, and they have stayed high. This year, so far, we have served over 3,100 individuals and provided 5,700 services to clients in Washington County. So we're about threefold higher than we were last year. And I want to thank the city of North Plains. You guys have been huge supporters of the Family Justice Center, including when we were talking about our efforts last year of needing to do more outreach to the community. The mayor stepped in and said that she would publish information about the Family Justice Center in the weekly or the monthly updates of the city to make sure that information got into the homes of survivors where they needed it, rather than having to go out and find it and try to have try additional avenues and potentially find barriers to finding services. Additionally, all of your police officers carry information about the Family Justice Center to ensure that when they are on scene, survivors are able to get information about us so that they can go to a single place and find the relief that they might need from violence or abuse inside of their homes. So prior to Mayor reading the proclamation tonight, I just want to thank you. Thank you very much for all of your efforts for not just the survivors in North Plains, but also the survivors in all of Washington County, knowing that our citizens move between city lines and we're all one community together here to take care of one another. And by reading this proclamation and making a public statement against domestic violence, what that actually does is signal to survivors that there are safe people in safe places in their community, that they don't have to stay silent, that there are people that will believe survivors. One of the biggest thrivers of violence is silence. And so by taking a stand and speaking out against it, we can create a community where there isn't a place for it to thrive into the future. So thank you, Mayor, for taking this opportunity, and thank you, City Council, for listening to this proclamation tonight.
Thank you, Rachel. So the city of North Plains proclaims, whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender identities, socioeconomic levels, religions, backgrounds, beliefs, and abilities, but often has a disproportionate effect on communities and groups impacted by inequity. And whereas domestic violence includes physical, emotional, sexual, social, spiritual, financial, and digital abuse, and can occur between family members, intimate partners, and within dating relationships. And whereas Oregon sees higher rates of violence and abuse than the national average, with 40% of women, 36% of men experiencing domestic violence. And whereas domestic violence impacts vulnerable victims, including children, as approximately 50% of Washington County children who are child abuse victims also live in homes with domestic violence. And whereas multiple scientific and medical studies show that trauma, especially for children who experience what is known as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, increases the likelihood the individual may struggle with addiction, mental health, or other challenges later in life. And whereas the social and economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect the ability of survivors to seek and access ongoing services. And whereas in 2021, the Family Justice Center provided a total number of 2,628 services to 1,902 survivors, and the Domestic Violence Resource Center fielded 6,331 crisis line calls and provided a total of 12,236 crisis services to 2,025 survivors. And whereas our Washington County community has united together to address the impact of all forms of family violence, including domestic violence, child abuse, and neglect, and is working to establish a new facility called the Family Peace Center of Washington County. And whereas domestic violence incidents are some of the most complex and dangerous incidents that law enforcement respond to in our community, putting their lives at risk every day in the belief that a coordinated community response is necessary to support survivors, hold offenders accountable, and work toward ending the cycle of violence. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent platform to show support for the domestic violence advocates, crisis hotline staff, victim service organizations, the prosecutors who hold offenders accountable, and law enforcement officers in our community, and provides the citizens of Washington County the opportunity to learn more about preventing domestic violence and show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, resources, hope, and assistance to victims. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Terry Linehan, the Mayor of North Plains, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Your work is extremely important, and I'm sure that if we all had the opportunity, we reflect on friends or family members somewhere. We know someone who has been affected by this, and we are so fortunate and grateful for the Family Justice Center and for all the work that you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, next on our agenda this evening is Commissioner Jerry Willie. Jerry, looking forward to your update.
Thank you, Mayor. And that is a great proclamation, and thank you, Rachel. You're doing a great job out there. So a couple of things. I sent you, I think, an agenda with 4 items that I was going to talk about. There's one more that I'm going to add to it, and something probably more closer to near and dear to your heart. The LIV golf tournament that you all endured last July 4th weekend is probably not returning next year. I don't know if you knew that or not. I haven't been able to get a confirmation that they are not, but we are pretty sure they are not going to be coming back to Pumpkin Ridge next year. They're going to another location. Escalante is the owner of Pumpkin Ridge. They are a Texas-based private entity. So they kind of do what exactly they want to do. And I think they own about 10 golf courses around the country. I believe they're going to redirect next year's tournament to another one of their courses. But remember, it's a 3-year contract. And so no guarantees about what 24 looks like, but at least maybe you might get a pass in 23. And I certainly will communicate that to the mayor as soon as I can get confirmation on that. Another thing that certainly will impact North Plains and all of Washington County is redistricting. As you know, we have to rebalance our 4 districts because District 2, which is basically comes right to Jackson School Road out here and heads east, has grown the most. They have about 159,000 people in it. District 4 is what you are in right now. My district, I have about 146,000. We can only be a delta of 3%. So we have to rebalance the other all 4 districts to be more equitable in population. So we're in the process of doing that. We started out with 5 different options. We have narrowed it down to 2 options. I talked to the mayor about this, I don't know, in the last few days. And so we are down to option 4 or 5. If you'd like to know, if you'd like to look at those maps, I can certainly send that link to the mayor. Neither one of them will change North Plains out of District 4. So you're stuck with me for another 10 years, or at least not me, District 4. But that was the good news, because I felt it was very important that we not disrupt North Plains and certainly the other cities in District 4. So I still will have North Plains, a larger piece of Hillsborough, Banks, Gaston, Forest Grove, and Cornelius will all still be in District 4. We will be making that decision here within about the next month, I believe. And so we have to have that in place by January 1, because then we start to roll into the next election season, and anyone that lives in a district that is moved to another district, of course, will then, if they're considering running for election for that spot, then they may have to move. So we want to make sure everybody has that advance notice. Flavored tobacco is another item that is kind of top of mind. If you remember, Washington County banned the sale of flavored tobacco. That was then voters put it back on the ballot again from an organization that represents the convenience stores. The voters ratified that ban. Then it was taken to court. The court system said, no, you can't take away the sale of product that a county can't take away the sale of a product that the state has authorized. And as a matter of fact, the state charges these convenience stores to have a permit to do that. So now we have the option of appealing that, we being Washington County. And I believe that they have decided to do that. I have been opposed to not only the ban, but to the appeal, and I continue to be opposed to that. There's a primary reason I think that we can do a better job of not violating the rights of those over 21 who have the rights to choose if they want that flavored tobacco. And we can also significantly restrict the availability to under 21. And the convenience store owners are very willing to work with us on that, but until we get out of the court system, that's not going to happen. So stay tuned, and the next time I see you, well, I might have more information on that. Also, one of the things that District 4, on the western side of District 4, basically on the western edge of Hillsborough and all the way out into the rural areas, is where I am with Columbia Pacific. It's the economic development side. I join up with Tillamook County, Clatsop County, and Columbia County. So there's 4 counties basically that make up this COLPAC, and also the Northwest Act. One of the things that COLPAC decided to do when the pandemic first started, because we realized that there was no rural broadband out here in a good portion of my district, and certainly they had some of the same issues. So we commissioned a study. The counties got together and paid for that study. We have that in place. The intention was to work with the city of Hillsborough and try and develop kind of what we call, I guess, a loop or a hoop between Hillsborough, North Plains, Banks, Gaston, and then drop around into Forest Grove. So we kind of complete the loop there and begin to provide a middle mile service, which enables us then to provide services to the homeowners. The private sector has gotten in the way a little bit. Interestingly enough, they figured out that maybe we're onto something here. So they have begun building fiber along the highways, which they can do. And as long as they use private money, they don't use any government money, then there's nothing we can do about that. So we've kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock on being able to provide the type of service that we wanted. And it's not that they won't provide a good service, it's just we were going to be trying to provide a service that enabled the lower income families and households to be able to get a subsidized rate. And I can pretty much assure you that the private sector probably won't do that as well as what we were going to. But again, stay tuned with that, because we're still looking at how we can maybe get to work around on that, talk to ODOT to see if there's any restrictions or possibly a franchise agreement type environment that we could do for any cabling along the highways. And it's not like we want to create a new tax, but we certainly want to level the playing field for providing broadband for our rural and certainly communities like North Plains. And North Plains does have an advantage because they are in the Hillsborough School District. And so I don't know if you have any dead spots out here in your broadband. I don't know how good your service is, but we're certainly going to be wanting to enhance that service for all the other communities as well. Psilocybin. You know what psilocybin is? It's good old mushrooms. stuff that we always thought was hallucinogenic and bad for you. Well, if you remember, the voters approved that. We could have the use of psilocybin in controlled environments. That was passed last year, then the state still has not put together rules yet, but it goes into effect January 1. We had an option as a county to either accept what their findings are and the rules for January 1, delay it for 18 to 24 months until they kind of got their act together and we could see what they were doing, or officially ban it. So we could have banned it in probably unincorporated areas, not in the cities, because I think they all have their individual rights to do that. But we decided not to. I will say was also not a unanimous choice on the commission's part, but that will go into effect January 1. And again, those rules have not been identified, so we will certainly let you know when those become an official document. However, in the process, Banks and Cornelius have both an initiative on the ballot to ban the use of that product in their cities. So interesting, you all have that same right as well. I don't know what conversations you had on there, but I do know that those two communities have decided to ban that. I think that's all the information that we have. Lots and lots of other stuff going on, but that's kind of the primary part that impacts my District 4. So do you have any questions?
Commissioner Willie, thank you so much for that update. It's always a pleasure to see you and also to hear what you and the other commissioners are doing for Washington County. I have a few things on my mind, and I'm hoping that my counselors do as well. So just as a reminder, I go to the Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting once a month, and then I also visit with the Washington County mayors and the county commission chair once a month. And it just happened that both of those meetings were today. So the first thing that from the Washington County Coordinating Committee was the MSTEP. And so we reviewed that list. We went through the 4 districts and the projects of the districts and the districts and so on and so forth. And so ours for the MSTEP is the potential roundabout, the Glencoe, West Union, commercial area there. So I'm glad to see it's still on your list. Yay, right, for us. I know that we hit some low spots as far as the equity piece, but I feel like it's still a pretty valuable. I think we're still in a good standing or good running for being on that list. I'm just wondering if you could possibly share with us how you feel about that project. Yeah.
Okay, well, just to give you a little bit of history on that, each MSTIP cycle, which is about every 4 years, we have to prioritize transportation projects. MSTIP stands for major streets, and I want us to hold on to the fact that it's major streets. And so the staff put together, of course, working with the cities, a list of projects that to make the list, and then they are graded and evaluated. North Plains Roundabout is number 2 on my list. We get $40 million spread over that 3 or 4 year period of time. And my list totaled $40 million, which was a good thing. So, so now I'm not sure all of them are going to stay on there. I think maybe the last 2 are a little bit in jeopardy, and it's not because of money, it's just because of there's some movement going on. But so what happens then is, and just as a comparison, the other 3 districts projects range from 100 to 140 million in total. So we're pretty fortunate out here that we can live within our budget, so to speak. The roundabout is second on my list. First on my list is the Cornell Brookwood interchange. if you've ever tried to go through that interchange after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're a ways back in the queue, especially if you're southbound. And so that's been on the docket. Actually, when I was mayor, we were talking about that. So that was 2017 before. So that's number one on my list. That's going to be done, and we're going to get that in the queue. But that's, again, we don't even start these projects until I think 26.
Some of them. Yeah, it's a 2020, it's a 23 to 28 cycle, so I think you're right.
Yeah, so just as soon as we can get into that, because there's a number of projects from the previous one that have not been done yet. Part of it is because the cost has gone up exponentially. And so what was budgeted won't cover the bill anymore. So no, your project is number 2. I like your project. I'm hearing that from the city council here, because if you guys don't like that roundabout, you let me know. Now, just as a comparison, when I came into office in 2019, there was a roundabout plan for the other end of Banks down there by just past City Hall, Banks Vernonia Trail parking lot and all of that. They were talking about a roundabout there, and I talked them out of it. I thought it was too big and too invasive. They were gonna have to take out several businesses, and I just didn't like the plan. That was just me. I'm not a transportation planner. I'm just a consumer. But I talked them out of it. I think they're gonna go with the Signal. The Signal is considerably cheaper, a little bit more maintenance, but so that's what I'm thinking here. I'm just, again, I haven't really thoroughly evaluated your project. I just have talked to the mayor about it, so I'm hoping everybody's on board with that. Because I don't want to get out ahead of you.
I think that we are, and I have another comment and a question, and then I'd like to see if the other counselors have questions, but in reviewing the packet today, going through the WCCC packet and information today, one, I noticed that they talked about the cost, increasing, which we can all certainly be cognizant of, steel and concrete and all that kind of stuff. But when I went through the comments from the surveys that LUT went through this past summer, I noticed that, a lot of people were really like thinking Oregon 47, 47, 47, 47, and there was a lot of interest about 47, and Oregon 47 and Fern Hill Road in Forest Grove. And it is a very dangerous intersection to navigate. And it's third on the list, and has the same dollar amount. I think ours is 7 mil and theirs is 7 mil. So I feel like we might be doing a little bit of competition there, and some people might be going, the commissioners might, who knows how they're going to feel about that. But I feel like, there's some reasonableness with that project, and I obviously feel greatly, I'm definitely advocating for my project, above anybody else's, I'm just I know that our survey ranking is excellent, but what concerns me is the equity piece. And I'm just wondering, in your opinion, do you think because our equity index score is low, right, compared to some of the other projects, do you think that's going to be a hindrance, or is that going to be something that prevents us from moving up the ladder or staying on the list? Or
I don't think that's going to be a problem, particularly right now, because I still am within my $40 million budget. But the reality is the Highway 47 intersection that you're talking about there, I don't believe that fixes it. I think that's the planning for it. So yours, it fixes it. That one is a planning. There's also, if you stay on Highway 47 and you head towards, go through Banks, and then you drop over into the Sunset Highway where it connects up there, and then you drop on down to the Vernonia intersection. All those are really significant traffic issues, and we're going to have to deal with those. They're big ticket items. we're gonna have to deal with those. We're gonna have to work with the state. ODOT's gonna have to step up a little bit on that because we can't finance those projects. But there's a number of other transportation things going on around. We are just prioritizing them, just like you said. I'll go back and look at to see what your equity score is, but at this point in time, I'm not getting any pushback on this.
Speaking of ODOT, we have one Gordon Road going across.
Mhm.
That'd be great if we had an on-ramp to help alleviate some of the pressure we have on Glencoe Road coming to North Plains. That's a spot where we're gonna have some growth, that area, and it's less than 1 mile, which is ODOT's rule. How, is there a levers we could pull to get just really that on-ramp and laser ramp? There's an on-ramp pretty much. The other side could have the laser ramp to go back to 26, the other way.
26 westbound.
Yeah, so we have westbound, we want an on-ramp going over here, and on the other side, eastbound. How, is that a hard lever to pull?
Yeah, for that particular situation, yes, it would be, because you do have an on-ramp and an off-ramp at Glencoe. And the general rule is they shouldn't be closer than a mile.
Right, it's general rule, but I think it'd be really great.
Well, you might talk to people on 217, because that's the issue with 217. They allowed them to be closer than a mile, hence why they have such traffic issues on ramps and on the off ramps. And in the big picture of things, that probably wouldn't get much of a high rating. And like I said, there's some significant projects that are coastal cities live off the tourism, and they have issues not only just in their part of the end of 26 there, but also up here around Vernonia. I mean, if you want a very, very dangerous intersection, come in from Vernonia and try and go east. Turn left across Sunset Highway on any weekend day, Friday afternoon. It's taking your life in your own hands. And so that probably, if there was going to be significant money, because an on-ramp would be pretty expensive. You got to buy right away, and there's a house there, if I remember. So in the comparison of things, the prioritization of things, I would say that's going to fall pretty low. Sorry. No, I don't. WCCC is the one, and the WCCC TAC, which is the Transportation Advisory Committee. They're the ones that come up with these on the list. So talk to your mayor and see if she wants to put it on there.
I advocate every time I come in
Yeah, it is.
contact with
It
ODOT.
is pretty low. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of levers need to be pulled. And it's just maybe put on the list, saying, we've been waiting 30 years, this way we have something to argue with, right? It's the number of-
It's on our TSP.
Yeah,
It is there as an aspirational project, so it's noted as a project. on
even if it's
the
just like,
adopted plan.
we've been waiting 30 years for this, it's a pretty weak argument, but it is an argument, so.
Well, especially how far down the road is the next exit?
Gershom?
Yeah, is that a couple miles?
No, it's over a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that would be an issue with getting prioritization for a new on-ramp too. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Just knowing that though, that's why the Glencoe, that intersection wasn't, that's why we put that in there. Because all growth and all traffic is gonna be flowing through Glencoe. Because no one's gonna get off on Gordon as the town grows towards the golf course. Not gonna go on Gordon Beach, they're gonna go through town, go to Glencoe. That's why we need to mitigate that intersection. So that was the gist of that project.
Well, I take Beach and Gordon every time I go to my favorite hangout.
Talk to everyone you know and see if they'll do the same.
Yeah, if I go out around town,
Yeah.
except for when I have to stop.
Well, you
with
can
my dog
come to town and
get my
spend
lunch.
money. Yeah.
I have one more thing, and this is to update you, so you're not blindsided tomorrow at BOC. So at the Mayor's +1, we talked about redistricting, and we looked at proposal 4 and 5. And I asked Chair to look at both proposals. there seemed to be a general consensus with everyone to go with number 5. I was rogue and I said, I'm going with 4. And some of that has to do with my conversations with some chamber members here in North Plains and some constituents who live up off of Mason and Dorland Road. And if you really kind of dive into that map and look at that map, like there's a sliver of North Plains, 97133, that's in District 2, right? And so I encourage Chair Harrington to look at North Plains as a unit and keep us together, instead of separating that little sliver on the proposal 5 map, you know, and maybe there's a way for the county, for you all to look at that and say, geez, you know, how many houses are there? How many voters? Like, what's the number? This afternoon on a phone call with her, she threw out 123, right? And I'm thinking, wow, is 123 really going to make or break District 2 or District 4, right? So she was diving into that this afternoon and diving into that with folks at the county to look at what the numbers look like, and if it would be feasible or possible to move that little sliver into District 4. And again, I was just really advocating for keeping North Plains together as a unit. I'm not trying to take anything away from District 2. Obviously, you know, we're going to be going through some growth pains with having a new House representative and a new Senate representative. And I thought, great, now we're gonna, you know, I mean, I have to work with 2 different commissioners. Not that I'm opposed to that, but you know, I mean.
Well, you got the best
You're
already.
my
so, you
favorite,
know,
you're my
yeah.
favorite, right? But I also was thinking, I was thinking about the people that live up there, and after talking to them, they were really advocating to see if it's possible to bring that little piece over into District 4. So FYI, again, didn't want you to be blindsided tomorrow, but.
No, this is good information. I appreciate it. I didn't realize that. My preference would have been that District 4 is anything west of Cornelius Pass. Because that's just a clear, bright line to me. But that was in option 1, and the chair did not like option 1, so it got tossed.
Yeah.
Roy didn't like option 1 either, so I can't blame it on the chair. So I'll go back and I'll look at what you're talking about, where that line should be drawn, and we can certainly make some modifications, I'm guessing. Because I think that's a very good point. One of the priorities was that we were not to break up communities or cities. And the biggest issue was, you know, Aloha and Beaverton. And then up in District 2, you have Cedar Mill and Cedar Hill, which are unincorporated. So it's very, very hard to find lines in there. District 2 is growing rapidly and continues to grow rapidly. So anyway, that was the primary focus. Out here, that should not be a problem. So we'll have that conversation.
And I think the line is Jackson School Road.
Well, I thought so too. So I thought it came out Jackson School Road. So everything, this side was North Plains. I didn't realize there was some North Plains
It curves.
further up.
It curves a little.
Okay.
So I just, brought it to her attention, wanted her to consider it. I think it's.
Well, there is 5 of
reasonable
us on the
ask.
commission, so, you
Yeah.
know,
I think it's a reasonable ask.
I think we can do that. Okay.
And the numbers for the 3%, if you use 1,400, 114,000 as your basis, it's 3,420. So
Yeah.
140 is not good.
No, and that, yeah, you're exactly right. We got to stay within 3%, but we're good. That won't be a problem.
Let me know when you find out.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Okay.
All right. Have a good night.
Is it okay if I go home now?
You are dismissed. All right. Thank you. All right, staff reports. Robin.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. Just making sure I can hear. Okay. So we've had a great month at the library. I just want to highlight that we had a high tea volunteer appreciation event on Saturday. It was very well attended with about 25 volunteers that we were able to acknowledge and appreciate with a really wonderful treats. It was put on by the Friends of the Library President, Debbie Olson, and then also our volunteer coordinator, Carol. And I also wanted to highlight that Brianna is visiting our elementary school. She went to Art Quality last Wednesday, and she's going to North Plains Elementary this Wednesday, spending a good portion of the day there, visiting all the classes. And just one example of a result from that visit last Wednesday was that she talked about her teen book boxes to the sixth graders, and she had 10 spots left and 9 of them were filled by the end of that day. So the kids are really starting to know Brianna and come into the library to visit her. And it's just really great how she's building that relationship with the schools and the students. That's my highlights. Thank you.
Comments or questions?
I asked a quick question about the teen council earlier today.
Oh,
How
yes.
many folks are on that and how well is it advertised?
So the teen council meetings are open for any teens to drop in and visit. And then if there's not really an application process, it's like a book club in a way where you could just drop in and visit as you'd like. So yeah, your teen would be welcome to go and try it out and talk to Brianna about it. She leads those.
A really good thing for kids that are gonna go to college, have it on their getting as a leadership experience. So I just want to be widely advertised more throughout the community. To have people in this community have a better bag leverage at the colleges they want,
Yeah, there are volunteer opportunities for teens. And we have had onboarded several volunteers that are teens lately. And then the council they do projects once in a while. They might lead a program for younger children or do a project as well.
Is there anything that we as a council can be doing to support the teen council?
I think they were able to speak at one of your State of the City addresses, and that was a nice way. I think just talking about it.
I would like to have a chance to give them some leadership opportunities, is what I'm trying to say. Something they can put on their resume or at least give them some experience. When it comes time for them to go to work, you're not intimidated, they're able to grab a steering wheel and drive. Or when they have a resume put together for the first job, they'll have a little more power than somebody else that has a first job doing something else. So I'm trying to figure out a way to give the teens of this community a little head start for as far as competition goes for kids in other communities. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is there a way to codify it and make it more official, make it more structured? This way, when they're asked in the interview process, what'd you do? Oh, I read this to kids. It'd be something a little more, robust. So that's what I was trying to help. So just for the kids in this community have an advantage over kids that don't have it.
Thank you.
And when we have city events, they are, are they interested, would they be interested in participating in a city event, we have numerous ones, obviously, Chili Cook-Off, et cetera, but, anything that we can do to try to engage with them more. If they have any ideas on how we might be able to do that or what they would like to see, that would be really helpful. So maybe you can
I'll pass that on. Definitely. I'll pass this all on to Brianna. Thank you.
We're gonna keep building those volunteers and encouraging that and.
Not only that, but we're all at different ages, right? And eventually the next generation is gonna want to take over. And give them as much practice as possible so they're better at it. We need stronger leaders than what we have now. So thanks.
Thank you.
One quick question. I know it's been on pause when we find a new public works director, but do we have an idea of where the next lending library post might be in town?
That is still on hold for the moment, and I look forward to when we do have a new public works director to talk to them about it. Because I think it's really, really fun project, and we'd like to see more around town. Thank you.
Thanks. Chief.
Hello, good evening. For the second month in a row, North Plains has had what I would say looks like a little bit of a below average public demand call, not by a lot, but a little bit. I think that's a good thing, to be honest with you. Aside from that, we really focused on the school zones, both before and after school with September and the school start. So that's what we've been focusing on in September. Looks like the overtime, we went about 40 hours for the after hours overtime with a total for the year of about approximately 371. So with that, our numbers really look pretty good. The self-initiated is high, and I think a lot of that's because of the school zones as well as the after hours coverage. But again, I really focus on the public demand calls because that's the people who are actually calling in. Now, also, this was the time for a quarterly. So you're looking at, let's look at the quarter stats. Again, we're just a little bit below on the public demand calls for this quarter, but not absurdly low. But if we look at our self-initiated, that's pretty high. Along with our traffic stops. So overall, we're spending our time doing self-initiated activity. Also, the hours for this month, everything's pretty standard for what we normally see for when the calls are coming in. The only other thing that really, since the last time we did staff reports, our one houseless individual has moved on, if anyone's noticed that. So that's been rendered and cleaned up and taken care of. So we haven't seen him back. I don't think he will be coming back, but again, that doesn't mean that there won't be others that want to show up, which again is a good reason for us moving forward with both the public indecency and the new code for camping. So that's really what I have. Do you have any questions?
Any questions or comments for Chief?
I have one. My data is kind of old, it's 30 years old. When I was doing this police stuff back in 1990, when I was going to do this as a job, summertime was a really busy time, and everything tended to curtail off in the winter. That's a generation ago, right? So with everything with winter coming upon us, it's still kind of hot and such, but the season's about to change. Do you think you still need overtime as we've had it for the nights, or would this be a good chance to have a slow down a bit to maybe 20 hours or so, because typically crime drops off? If that's I have old data, right? So is that still something that we should think about? Has the winter times nights tend to have been kind of slow?
Well, this is the conundrum that we're in. Is traditionally a lot of the crimes and things that happen in the summertime tends to be parties and fights, domestic stuff. The actual crimes for breaking into cars and thefts, that does not break off. Neither does the catalytic converters and the things like that. Where North Plains has been hit, that doesn't dip necessarily. You really got to get into the weeds on what is exactly the type of crime that's dipping, and what calls are the ones that are being boosted up. It's kind of like DUIs don't drop off either based on the summer or the winter. They tend to always be there. So what I would say is, I think it's still a good idea if it's making everyone feel safer and it's giving us that coverage. I don't think it's outrageous because it's not all being filled. But it is working on some of those after hours and giving more visibility in the evenings. When I say evenings, I actually mean middle of the night for North Plains. So that is a good conversation to have. Like I said, I'm still going to push for, I think North Plains would really benefit with 24-hour coverage. So whether we do that with an FTE or overtime, that's still the issue that we have. And I'm pretty sure when we had those, the big rashes of thefts, that wasn't necessarily the summertime. That was either spring or in that time. So I don't have a good answer for you. You might have been speaking for like a minute or so, but the reality is that I think the more coverage is better for North Plains, however we can get there.
So basically, you think it's a good idea to not stop it? Thanks.
Well, I don't think the good idea is to be paying with overtime. I think the way to solve that is to get it to where we have a full-time employee that's doing it on a regular basis. Because again, playing it hit and miss on when the crime's going to occur, we're really rolling the dice. And I've said that from the beginning, where this is really just a stopgap. Where we're really going to benefit is having someone working every night and being that visibility. That's how I think we can really make an impact and do it. Whether that's with overtime or whether that's with an FT, I would much rather have the same person who's learning the community and learning the neighborhoods, patrolling at night for all of the hours, not just here and there.
So our overtime has been different people all the time. Is there a name up on the list? Has it been a consistent person or has it been?
It tends to be the same people,
Okay.
mostly because like anything, there's certain people that want overtime and there's certain people that don't, as well as those people work those shifts. And they rotate shifts every 6 months. And as I said before, it's the way I built the overtime to give us the greatest opportunity for success was to tack it on at either the end of a shift or at the end or beginning of another shift. So those folks can still go, hey, I got, what's another 3 hours? I can go make overtime for 3 hours. Well, I'm already geared up and in a car, I can just go do it. So that's really putting us in an advantage for that, filling out overtime. And those tends to be the same folks that want to work those shifts. And again, with them working in that 6-month rotation on that shift, it just makes it, they can roll right into it.
Thanks.
Any other questions? One quick question. Is there a way to pull the report for overtime deputies and put it in a similar graph as how you have North Plain deputies as far as like public demand, traffic stop? Is there a way to compile that data? The overtime coverage?
Just for those hours?
Yeah, just so we can kind of see the return on investment. My peace of mind, I would happily pay for it, but I'm just curious the frequency and how much activity we are seeing during those overtime hours.
Yes, that is possible. I was trying not to do that every month. Again, the numbers are, North Plains doesn't have a lot to begin with numbers wise, if you look at it, even in the 3 months. So I was trying not to show that every month. I can do that if you'd like. I was trying to do it more like every 6 months in a wrap up so you can kind of see it.
More data is better. More data is better, always.
So if that's something you'd like to see, I can work on getting that for every month.
I don't want to put a huge pile of work onto your plate, but I think maybe if next month that's a possibility, just to get that snapshot, especially as we're going to be revisiting the potential levy conversation, just to kind of wrap our minds around what that looks like overnight. Is that something that's possible just maybe for next month to try out?
Of course it's possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Any other comments or questions for Chief? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Community Development Monthly Report. Anyone have any questions about the 3J report? For Andy, I would assume, right?
I'm acting. I'll note a couple things in there.
Please do.
One, because it's going to affect this body on November 7th. You'll notice the planning commission filed through four public hearings this last week. The paper was online for that. So there'll be 4 ordinances to city council on November 7th, but really going through a lot of stuff. Marijuana businesses, yeah. So, no, it doesn't work that way. The psilocybin, like Commissioner Willie alluded to earlier, the psilocybin business regulations, they'll mirror the marijuana time and place and location for those rules. The EOA, Economic Opportunities Analysis, amended to help alleviate some of DLCD's concerns. Those concerns still exist, but we know that we've come to an impasse, and our approach is going to be our approach that we feel is right, and we'll see if they open up their appeal again or they stay the appeal, but we're going to this eyes wide open. So we haven't heard from them since the hearing last Wednesday. But that would be there November 7th, and then short-term rentals. And all of those things we've either had a work session on, or with the planning commission, or in the case of the EOA, we've actually adopted before, but this is just changing some of the methodology and the findings to work with the LCD on that. So that will be coming in November 7th. That will be a busy meeting. Steve's done well taking over. You see all of those building permits that are listed there coming through from Lennar. He's looked at a lot of those site plans. So he's been meeting with Heather regularly to get up to speed on all of our land use files. And then lastly, the Public Works building, the schematic design is coming along pretty well. We had a meeting with the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors a couple weeks ago, kind of finalizing those details, and got a second story implemented. One thing that does change things is that triggers the need for an elevator because of the public building. So we're going to have to sort of value engineer some things there, because that's definitely going to add cost when you add an elevator. But I think all in all, it'll work out. And also, if we make that into more workspaces up on the second floor, elevator is going to be a good thing anyway.
Yeah,
So,
cargo elevators like that.
what's that?
Yeah, cargo elevators like that. So we're a big thing.
Yeah, it's not going to be like a hotel elevator or anything like that. But just whatever it is, it's back or in the tweet code. Anyway, that's a couple of highlights. We did have Public Works Director interviews 2 weeks ago. Councilor Kendall participated, and we have a candidate we feel good about, and we have an offer today, so we will see where that goes.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, Andy. Bill?
Good evening, everyone. See here, highlights from the finance report for the month of September. As far as the general fund, departments in the general fund, things are kind of moving along. The detailed tables for that are on the second page of the report. We're continuing to track 2 general categories of expenses that, for a couple of different reasons, are are higher than where they should be now relative to budget. The one we're really watching is materials and services expenses for the community development department. UGB planning, other kind of planning and review services and issues with growth and development. Those are all kind of coming in a little bit higher than budgeted. So far to date, we're still under budget for the biennium for that, but we've kind of been very, very busy. So we're a little bit ahead where we should be relative to the fiscal year, but we're watching that. The other expenditure category that looks like it's higher, but really it is not, and it's kind of distorted because of accounting, is personnel services expenditure for the general government department. We, that much spending relative to budget hasn't happened. There's some accounting that needs to be corrected with fiscal year 22 year end that will change that number. Two of us have gone in and worked on allocation of how salary expenditure and personnel expenditure are attributed to general government, and the software is not our friend on this. So we're not spending over or more rapid compared to budget. It's just how things are being accounted in the software. And so we'll be fixing that with fiscal year 22 year end. And that, and as a result, will change some of the numbers there. Our personnel expenditures for that department and for overall, again, it's kind of goofy looking data, given how the software is accounting for it. So anyway, that's the general fund. Nothing remarkable for the streets fund. I would say water fund, all of these warm months, water revenue is very high compared to where it normally would be or what we would expect by now. October, it's been lovely. Water sales have been great, but that here in a week should be closing down. So I guess we'll be well situated regarding water revenue going into the leaner winter months on that. But really kind of the big thing that stands out, if you've had a chance to look at the water fund account status report, we had some irrigation water spending in Sunset Ridge that for whatever reason went overdue to the tune of $16,000, which was a gigantic jump for 1 month. So by the end of September, we had overdue balances at just over 26,000. We had been well below that leading into September. If we ignored Sunset Ridge during the month of September, overdue balances for the increase in overdue balances for everybody else, all the residents and other businesses, was about $2,600. Well, I am pleased to state that Sunset Ridge got current today. So all of that overdue balance that is showing up in the report was paid off. So we're back down to normal levels in terms of overdue balances by residents and businesses. Don't know what happened over there. I think maybe they just oversight, but today we got payment. So that story is resolved today, as a matter of fact. I guess the other big thing, it is the report for as of September 30th. So that's the end of the first quarter of the new fiscal year. So activity for the capital funds is provided in this report when it isn't for the other kind of do that once every 3 months, just because those funds don't usually see a lot of activity. But the big thing really just to kind of draw your attention to would just be all of the Brent Hill permitting that's been going on and construction that's been going on. And that's brought several $100,000 of system development charges and transportation development tax into those appropriate capital funds. That's really kind of a big story for the first quarter. We definitely had a pause in activity at Brent Hill during the month of August, but then I think September 3rd, they came in with a stack of payments for a number of lots, and they've been going since. So they just kind of took a breather in August, it seems, but they're back to normal activity now. So anyway. Other stuff going on. Audits about wrapped up. We have 2 audits going, of course. The fiscal year 17 URA audit, we're reviewing their draft report. 21 is just about done. Debbie, our finance consultant, is doing some wrap up on the water reservoir data that the auditors are looking into and reporting on for fiscal year 21. So that's about done. Anything else? Fiscal year 23 property tax revenue estimated from the county came in, and our expectations compared to what they're declaring as levied for the fiscal year for us are very close. So no shortfalls, no no big overages on revenue, but no shortfalls either compared to what we were expecting. So property taxes are right about what they should be, where we expected. So we'll be headed into November, December, when all that starts rolling in, feeling stable. Other than that, stand for questions.
So Paige.
The personnel services, there are some issues with the software. Can make it look like it's, what kind of issues are you running with, or into?
So every employee and their personnel costs are entered into the payroll system. And then if some employees aren't, like me and Andy and Lori and a few others, don't work for just one department. We work for a number of different departments. I do a little bit for urban renewal. Lori does a little bit for urban renewal. Some of us, our efforts are span across different departments. And in the software program, we enter in this employee, 20% of their time is attributed to this department, 30% is attributed to that department. So there's a split, there's an allocation of by employee, how much of their personnel costs should go to different funds or different departments, attributed to different funds or different departments. That allocation doesn't work properly in the software. And even with fixes, it will attribute incorrectly and it'll be off. Not dramatically, but there are errors in that allocation that we at year end just basically have to move money around based on the split that's adopted in the budget.
And make it fill in the gaps wherever you need it, right?
Yeah. So the general government is being over attributed for salary, for instance, and other funds and departments are being under attributed.
I see this, right?
Yeah, that's all it is.
And in person, Council Payton.
Question, the Sunset Ridge overdue balance, do we know if that was phase 1 or phase 2 that was overdue?
I don't know. I just know Sunset Ridge HOA. That's all.
Okay, no problem. And I'm just thinking, because I know phase 1 just went through an HOA changeover with a different company. So my next question is then when that happens, is there a late fee that's charged? $16,000?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I mean, it just went into the over 30 days category. And so they came in and paid it today. It was just as of last week. A
Okay.
big number, relatively speaking for us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, item number 9A on our agenda, we've got the two ordinances, both up for second readings. The first one is ordinance number 482. Any comments or discussion? I think we know what this is all about. Oh, okay. So the first one up for the council to review and consider is ordinance number 482. It's up for second reading by title only. Do I have a? We need to. It's the camping code ordinance number 482.
I'll move that we conduct a second reading of ordinance 482 by title only.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion on the table by Counselor Sheldon, seconded by Counselor Page. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. So ordinance number 482 is an ordinance amending section 131.14 of the North Plains Municipal Code regarding camping prohibited in certain places. All right, may I now have a motion to adopt
I'll
ordinance
move to
482?
adopt ordinance number 482.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Counselor Sheldon and Counselor Page. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried.
Russ is excited.
All right, on to ordinance number 483. It's the Public Indecency Code, ordinance number 483. May I have a motion to conduct a second reading of ordinance number 483?
I move to conduct the second reading of number 483 by title only.
One second. All right, a motion on the table by Counselor Kindle, seconded by Counselor Pippen. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Ordinance number 483 is an ordinance adding section 131.17 to the North Plains Municipal Code regarding public indecency. And I have a motion to adopt.
I move to adopt ordinance 43.
Second. Again, first by Counselor Kindle, seconded by Counselor Pippen. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you so much. Rapid fire. Yay. All right. Item number 10, we have nothing for new business. Unfinished business, nothing to report there. City managers report. Andy, any highlights you want to bring to our attention?
No highlights, but sort of the management staff, we got together last week and went over some of the goal setting, the plan that the council and staff did, or that was 5 months ago, just to kind of see where we are, benchmarking progress, and here in a month or so, we'll come back and just kind of let everyone know where things are hitting the mark. Some are kind of ahead of schedule, some are right where they need to be, and some will be, you know, year 2 and 3 as we kind of determine. But anyway, just wanted to give you an update on that. As part of that too, we've been, I wanted to do sort of a community priorities or community values survey for a while. I think everyone's probably wanted to do that. So we're going to try to shoot for doing one either at the end of this year, kind of depends on timing. If we get too close to the holidays, we may just wait to do it right after the beginning of the new year. But we're going to work on putting something together, and then in one of the next 2 or 3 meetings, we'll bring it to council and kind of see what the questions look like and if we're missing anything. You know, it's just a kind of gauging, you know, customer and resident satisfaction in certain areas, some areas where people might, you know, have a higher priority for certain work areas that maybe we didn't perceive. So it would be kind of a good exercise. So we're working with Corinne on that. She's done several of these in the past. So she's going to help us sort of format that and get that out the door. And we'll, think we may even do a direct mailer with a postcard directed right to the survey, and then use the app for that as well. And then, well, I'll leave it at that. Mayor and I have a couple of things for him later. So any questions from there or what's been happening later? Just
Questions for Andy on his report? Good. All right. I did see, I think in your Friday 5, you're doing a Thursday, you're doing a staff.
yeah, we're gonna do a little team building.
Yay.
Something we haven't done, well, since probably before the pandemic, and you know, we wanted to step up and get people on board, so now we have more people on board. So we're gonna do something on Thursday, and if people aren't too sick of each other, everyone rolls over to the chili cook-off or something. You know. So that's Thursday as well here.
That's right. Chili cook-off Thursday night. Well, I hope your Thursday goes well and it's a success for you all. And the city hall will be closed during that time. Then
Yeah, we're closing
2 to
at
5.
2:45.
Okay, okay, great. All right. Council reports, questions, anything to report?
Last week I spent some time to go with my wife. She's on the board of directors for the Washington County Justice Center. So I went down there, and I forgot where my North Plains been, but people kind of recognize me. So I attended that, and he was there. And it was pretty nice to hear the stories and see what the community has to say. And I'm glad there wasn't on the consent agenda. I'm glad that population was actually read aloud. So that's nice, and I thank you for that. That's all I really have.
Any other council reports? Councilor Pippen?
Can you give a brief one?
So last week I attended the planning commission meeting. It was quite a lengthy meeting. So props to Lori and Bill and Andy for sitting through that. And really just discussion about the EOA, the marijuana, psilocybin, and short-term rentals. Thank you so much. And short-term rentals as well. And some of those things will be coming back to council here soon. And then I did have one update I wanted to ask. So I feel like in the past, Councilor Sheldon has mentioned the business location. I think it's on 318 in Cameron, perhaps near the post office. And there's quite a few vehicles outside. And I had a constituent approach me about that area, saying that she felt like there might be people living inside that business. And then, you know, I drove past and I was like, oh gosh, like, yeah, this could be, you know, could be a situation. And I just wanted to know where are we at with our code? Is that something that we're monitoring? How many cars are parked on the side? I'm sure you see it, you know, and I just wanted to maybe get an update or some visibility to that so I can report back.
Yeah, I don't have any idea of who's living in the businesses. I know I see some of the employees come and go in the morning. Unfortunately, Han is moving those cars around on a fairly regular basis, which is within when we would be towing the cars, and I'm in constant communication with him about that. So it's within code, although again, my priority was to leave the park open. So I've made it so that all the parking for the park and to our parking is there for the residents to be able to use the park. And so that was my priority, is to make sure that area is being left open.
Okay, and then as far as potentially people living inside RVs inside the fenced enclosure, is that something that is within code?
I have no idea if they're living in the vehicles or not. So
Hypothetically, if they were.
that's a good question. I'm gonna have to research that. I don't know exactly what the code is for living in the vehicles. To be honest, I'm just not super familiar.
It's time. Sure.
Yeah, and the difficult part is knowing exactly when that is. Enforcing it. I know it's on the streets, it's different, but inside its own business or inside of
Private property.
is different. So
Even if it's zone commercial.
again, I'm not super familiar on exactly what the rules are for who can live inside of a business or on the property within the commercial property. And how to enforce that is really difficult, but I'd have to research to find out exactly what the length of time is and what that rule is.
Councilor Page.
To follow up on Trista's example, we have a business in town that is having a hard time evicting somebody because they're claiming that they live there. So can I please ask if the council agrees, that we have a council look at making our code tougher? If somebody's living in a commercial zone, that they're still gonna fine, like littering, like $100 a day or whatever it is, see how that would look. Because that would seem to be really good for business owners to be able to manage that better. Because there's a different law for commercial versus residential. And somebody says they're living someplace, it's a business, even though it's zoned commercial, there's no other teeth that we have. So we can say, well, then you're being fined this many dollars a day. That may be something as a deterrent and something that's enforceable. If the council agrees with that, I think that may be a good idea to look at it at least.
It's a reasonable ask.
I work at the pleasure of the council. So if that's what you'd like to do, I can talk to the city attorney about that. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what's on my mind too, is like, we've been trying to work with the business owner to give them all the evidence they need to share with the judge that says, this is zoned commercial. It's not for living quarters. And the judge of Washington County is letting that say. So something tells me there's somewhere in law, probably in Oregon's law, evictions and whatnot. That makes it a little bit tougher, but I'll see what we can do and talk to the attorney about that. Commercial areas, since mixed use and all that is obviously allowed many times. Maybe there's some nuance there, but I don't exactly know. Industrial, I would think that would be a tougher thing to allow someone to live there. But again, I'll have to work with the attorney on that. But if that's something you'd like to do, I'll see what we can look at when it comes to people treating industrial and commercially zoned properties as living quarters.
Is there consensus for Andy to look into that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for bringing that. Any other council reports or comments, questions? I pretty much gave my report when Commissioner Willie was here. Those were the two meetings that I really wanted to highlight, so gave you that update. And then also I learned today that for those who knew him, Frank Angelo passed away a couple of weeks ago. And Frank Angelo actually worked with the city for years in the past, working on I think he worked on our first original UGB, like he was instrumental in working with Don Otterman on several things for the benefit of the city. I'm not sure you knew, I thought you knew Frank probably.
I worked with him a lot.
Yeah,
Back
that's
when, yeah, for a long time.
Yeah, he just retired and was on a retirement trip and passed away unexpectedly. So yeah, it was kind of a bummer. So I guess the moral of the story is, man, enjoy every day, live your life. So sorry, I don't want to end on a note, but I mean, it was important. He's a very, well-known figure in and around Washington County and Portland metro area. And he was also very instrumental in North Plains before I moved here. So anyhow, other than that, chili cook-off Thursday. We all going to be attending.
What time is it?
Good job, Thursday.
I can't get up early for some before.
All right. If there anything else for this evening? All right, I'll go ahead and close the city council meeting at 8:24. Thank you all.